Now, when it comes to environmental degradation, the next question is a 2016 question. The 2016 question primarily reads as, Gadgil Committee report and Kasturi Rangan Committee report, sometimes seen in news, are related to. And 4 options are given: constitutional reforms, Ganga Action Plan, linking of rivers, and protection of Western Ghats. Now, again, this year, in the onset of your Wayanad landslide, these both committee reports have been in news. Now, when I'm saying Wayanad itself, you do know that it's primarily related to your Western Ghats. The answer to this question is D, but let me give you a little bit of brief on what exactly this report is about. See, there is a concept called as your eco-sensitive zones. Eco-sensitive zones, primarily created under your Environmental Protection Act of 1986. What it says is, if you do have a protected area in the form of a national park or a wildlife sanctuary or a tiger reserve, some area around it, around the boundaries of that protected area, should be kept with very less of development. Okay. Now, what has happened is, in a very densely populated area like the Western Ghats, not just in Wayanad, but in a lot of areas where the Western Ghats are, there's so many people living in a very dense manner with very close by to the protected area. So, over the time, this inhabitation over there and certain development activities that are happening because people are there, what has happened is the Western Ghats have become a very weakened, very vulnerable landscape in India. So, first you had the Gadgil Committee report, or the Gadgil Madhav, the committee was led by Madhav Gadgil. Again, Madhav Gadgil is also in news currently because he has received one of the highest honors of UNEP very recently. But apart from that, now this committee led by Mr. Madhav Gadgil, he first gave a report suggesting very stringent measures as to how to protect this Western Ghats. And it involved saying that the eco-sensitive zones around your Western Ghats should be a little bit more elaborate. There should be very minimal activities happening over there. Obviously, what happened is people rose in protest against the Gadgil Committee report, because that would involve, if there were very strict norms in your eco-sensitive zones, that would involve people to be kicked out from their homes and without any idea about rehabilitation or anything. So, people first started coming out in protest, and to pacify them, you had a second committee report called as your Kasturi Rangan Committee report. Nevertheless, both of them are related to the protection of your Western Ghats. Question is a 2014 question. The question reads as, the scientific view is that the increase in global temperature should not exceed 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level. If the global temperature increases beyond 3 degrees Celsius, and trust me, it's a huge change when that happens, above the pre-industrial level, what can be the possible impact or impacts on the world? Okay. So, we are looking at a global temperature increase. Okay. Global temperature increase of almost 1 degree Celsius. 1 degree is the difference between ocean water rising and falling. So, understand that. So, it's a huge increase. Anyway, let's look at the options. First says, terrestrial biosphere tends towards a net carbon source. Okay. That primarily means that from your earth, you are having your, whatever is the land body that is there, from there is more and more just carbon just coming out. See, you have to understand this is both an impact and a cause of your temperature increase. So, some students think, okay, is that a cause or an impact? But yes, the idea is when you have this carbon source, what is going to happen? That carbon gets into the atmosphere. That atmosphere, again, as we had spoken again, what happens is this increases the heat. On the whole, what happens is the different aspects that are there on the terrestrial biosphere, be it your oceans, be it your land, in any area which is there, the carbon is not getting captured. Instead, it becomes a net carbon. The amount of carbon that is released is more than the amount of carbon that is captured. Okay, so first option, let's keep it over there, just think about it. Second option is widespread coral mortality will occur. Again, understand, here they are speaking specifically about your tropical corals. or your soft corals, because in your soft corals you do have an organism called as your zooxanthellae, which is very sensitive to temperature increase. So when the temperature increase does happen, what is going to be there? You will see that the corals will die. So widespread coral mortality will occur. That is a possibility. All the global wetlands will permanently disappear. See, now this is a very absolute statement, and the problem of the statement is there are global wetlands which have mangroves, and mangroves are quite adaptable to this temperature increase. They need not maybe perish in this. So third option, not so much. Fourth option, cultivation of cereals will not be possible anywhere in the world. See, now again, when I'm saying global temperature increase, you have to understand areas that are currently 25 degrees Celsius will become 26. Areas that were previously 18 or 10 degrees Celsius will also have a 1 degree increase, which means those areas will be actually suited for cereal cultivation. Maybe an area that was previously having cereals will be too hot for it, but an area that was previously cold, if their temperatures increase by 1 degree or 2 degrees, whatever is the temperature needed, that area might be maybe suited for cereal cultivation. So your options 3 and 4 are quite, it's quite, the possibility of it is quite questioned. So what you can say is 3 and 4, wherever the options are there, you eliminate it. So this is gone. So now you have 1 only and 1 and 2. We had already spoken about 2. The answer is B, 1 and 2 only. So I hope that is clear. Next, we have a 2014 question. The question reads as, which of the following are some important pollutants released by the steel industry in India? So they have asked steel, and so again I hope you do understand when I am saying steel industry, in your steel industry also you do have a lot of carbon thermal power used. Okay, so now let's have a look. Oxides of sulfur, oxides of nitrogen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. So when it comes to your steel industry, you are using coal as one of its major base particles to extract steel in a good manner. So what happens is any kind of impurity that might have been there in coal will show up even in your steel industry, which means that oxides of sulfur, oxides of nitrogen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, any of these particles can be there. Your answer to this question is D, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Next is a 2014 question. The question is about nanoparticles. There is some concern regarding the nanoparticles of some chemical elements that are used in the industry of manufacture of various products. Why? What is the concern? They can accumulate in the environment and contaminate water and soil. They can enter the food chains. They can trigger the production of free radicals. So what exactly are these nanoparticles? Nanoparticles are those extremely tiny particles that are in the range of 10 raised to minus 9 meters. So that is the diameter of it, extremely small. And now, in a lot of manufacture of different products, from cosmetics to food industry to your everyday products, cloth in every other industry, you do have the creation of nanoparticles. Because of its extremely tiny nature, it very frequently infiltrates any kind of human activity that is there. For example, if I were to respire nanoparticles, it will easily pass through my respiratory system and enter into my bloodstream because it is of extremely small diameter. So which one do you think is quite obvious if based on this description? That they can enter the food chain. They can clearly enter the food chain and pass from one organism to the other. Why? Because it does not, it's something that it's so tiny that it can easily pass through any kind of membranes that are right now there to prevent any kind of particles like this. So it will easily pass through it. So 2 is an option that is going to be there. When I look at 2, there is only 2 options. This is 1 and 2, 1, 2 and 3. That means 1 is also valid. They can accumulate in the environment and contaminate water and soil. So again, why? Because this is something that is unwanted. It's entering into the bloodstream, it's entering into water bodies, can enter into organisms from there. So option 1 is anyway correct. The third one is they can trigger the production of free radicals. What is a free radical? See, basically, if for example, in chemistry, you have certain things called as stable compounds. Your oxygen, carbon dioxide, they all are very stable compounds. Now, what happens is, when you have any other particle like a nanoparticle, they keep going, and because nanoparticles are also, it can be nanoparticles of carbon, nanoparticles of oxygen, nanoparticles of your magnesium, whatever compound it can be, smaller particles of it. So what happens is, these particles go and start hitting your stable compounds. When they start interacting in this manner, maybe the stable compound will split. When the stable compound split, it creates something called as your free radical, and that is why third option is also correct. The answer to this question is 1, 2 and 3. Next, we move on to a 2014 question. The question reads as, brominated flame retardants are used in many household products like mattresses, upholstery, etc. Why is there some concern about their use? So, in most of these products that can easily catch fire in your homes, they have had a coating of your brominated flame retardants. First of all, they are highly resistant to degradation in the environment, and they are able to accumulate in humans and animals. Both the options are correct. Why? Because from your brominated flame retardants, they are created so that there is no damage to the underneath substance. When the brominated flame retardant enters into the environment, there also what is going to happen to break it down, your normal particles will not be able to act on it. Microorganisms, your sunlight, water, anything that acts on it, the brominated flame retardant will resist it. So what happens? It's resistant to degradation. That's the first option. Second is, they are able to accumulate in humans and animals. Again, what happens is, because this thing can be, in its actual form itself, if it gets broken down into smaller particles, the microparticles of it, the nanoparticles of it, it can enter into the human body, and there also it cannot be acted upon by anything. So it's basically like there's something very similar to this, is something called as your forever chemicals. If you've heard, your non-stick pan and everything is coated with this layer of substance called as your forever chemicals. Now, that is also exactly like this. It's very resistant to heat, temperature and water and everything, so much so that even when it enters in parts into our body, what is going to happen is it accumulates in our body, because it cannot, nothing can act on it and break it down. So, both the options over here, 1 and 2 are correct. The answer to this question is C, both 1 and